this morning and the sun was gone. Turned on some music to start my day, then lost myself in a familiar song. I closed my eyes and I slipped away.
100,000 sperm and you were the fastest.
You are the kind of club-toting, raw meat-eating, me-Tarzan, you-Janin, big ball bubblehead that can only count to 10 if he's barefoot or wearing sandals.
It's more than a feeling when I hear that old song they used to play, and I begin dreaming till I see Marianne walk away. I see my Marianne walking away.
You were literally too stupid to insult.
Thank you.
Mr. Dorfman.
Hello.
0.2.
So many people
Fat,
have
drunk,
come
and
and
stupid
gone.
is no way to go through life, son.
Their faces fade as the years go by, yet I still recall as I wander on, as clear as the sun in the summer sky.
How tall are you, Private? Sir, 5'9", sir! 5'9". I didn't know they stacked shit that high.
Hey, man, what's wrong with that breath? I can smell it over here. Reggie, your breath is so stink, people look forward to your fart.
It's more than a feeling when I hear that old song they used to play, and I begin dreaming till I see Marianne walk away. I see my Marianne walking away.
You can always tell when Barnett's been over my house. The toilet ain't never flushed and the cat's pregnant.
Oh, Reggie, I heard of dreadlocks, but shitlocks? That's not your hair. Take that pile of shit off your hair, you crazy.
Hit me in the chest with that.
You got fired. I'd kill you.
Yeah? From what I hear, you couldn't hit water if you fell out of a fucking boat.
Maybe you could tell us who first suggested the idea of reproduction without sex.
Your wife?
It's more than a feeling when I hear that old song they used to play, and I begin dreaming till I see Marianne walk
Oh, this is the worst looking hat I ever saw. Well, you buy a hat like this, I'll bet you get a free bowl of soup, huh? Oh, it looks good on you, though.
Hey, Vasquez. Have you ever been mistaken for a man?
No. Have you?
Well, well, well. We are indeed back again. Would you, Adam and Eve, it this what? Thursday night? Are we going to go with that? The 1st of September? Yeah. Of course, September. We all know September. For one thing and one thing only, at the moment at least. Can you guess what it is? I wonder, right? So, good evening, good afternoon, good night, good morning, wherever you may be in this absolutely mental world that we live in. Wow, where do you even begin, right? How many times have we touched on geoengineering now? Hours and hours and hours, and we're still basically scratching the surface. We could go 2, maybe 3 hours tonight. Who knows, right? But hopefully not too long. But honestly, there's so much to cover. I was hoping to kind of round it off in this one until we come back to it again, but there's just too much to cover. So it's going to be just a continuation, a sort of series focusing on weather modification, weather manipulation. Does anyone know when they first began to modify the weather or manipulate the weather? Does anyone know the date roundabout? I'd imagine some people would know, right? But are they doing it today even? That's the question. And in my opinion, they are. They have been doing it. And they plan on doing it even more in regards to the geoengineering project or solar radiation management, if you like, via aerosol injection, right? All the good stuff, all the good particles that are going to be so safe and beneficial to the planet. Of course, when it comes to geoengineering, it's not a silver bullet. It won't even help climate change. It'll only make it worse, but it's what they call a supplement to the climate crisis that we're in, that we have created. It's our fault, seemingly, and we've to bear the brunt. We've to adapt to this climate crisis. I think they talk about mitigation, adaptation, and what's the other one? It's failing me now. We covered it before, but we all know about mitigation and, of course, adaptation, right? You've got to adapt. You will have to change your life completely to benefit the agenda because, yeah, the powers that be, they have your safety, your benefit at heart, right? Of course they do. It's all for your benefit. We're so lucky because here we are in a climate crisis, but entities like NASA, are they not a space agency? We'll get back to that. We'll get back to that one in a bit. Entities like NASA, right? Good old NASA, the ever trustworthy NASA, they're going to look out for us. They're going to provide all the data. They're the go-to when it comes to the climate, right? Who'd have thought it? NASA, the weather agency. Yeah. So let me quickly say hello. Then we will even get down to it, right? Let me see. Are we rolling? We are going. I had to double check because we should be live on YouTube, Odyssey, and Twitter, right? So we're on the free platforms right across the world tonight, live from the rolling hills of Murrayshire, right? How is everyone getting on? Let me quickly say hello in the chat. I don't know how much time I'm going to have to interact. I'll try my best, but anyone who knows the score knows that I can't multitask. So we're going to try. We've got a slideshow to go through. I have got a couple of videos to play. When I'm going to play them, well, one actually, I think, possibly two. I can't even remember. Do you know this? I made this the other day, but I never had the time to get round to it between doing the college work and life itself, I guess. The family, right? The priorities. The time that I've got is not the same, but I still do have time to do things like look at geoengineering, for example, amongst other things. But at the moment, I'm kind of knee deep in plant propagation. So I've got propagation to the eyeballs at the moment. Anyone big on their plant propagation? Let me know, right? I do find it all very interesting, but it's also different when there's a test, when there's an exam or a test at the end. It's all right just learning it off your own back, right? But when there's added pressure, it can be a bit stressful. But I do enjoy the stuff that I'm doing. So I got round to it eventually, and here we are today, right? I think Thursday, we're going to go with that. I get Wednesday and Thursday, I think, at the moment. I'll be off, but for how long I'm unsure. I will be working at the weekend as well, so I don't know. The time is going to be limited, right? There's never enough time anyway, but we'll get into that another time. It's geoengineering tonight. So hello to Carmel in the hood. First in the door. The check is in the post. And of course, there's no Carmel without Rich, right? So Rich is in the hood as well. Good to see you back again. Rich, who else have we got? DJ in the hood, our brother from away over in Inverness, right? I think about 30 minutes in the car from where I am. Beautiful Inverness. Good to see you, DJ, back again. Who else did I see? DJ Carmel, Steve as well, the number one moderator in the whole of the planet Earth, in the whole of the metaverse as well. Steve's the guy to see, right? You've got to see Steve if you need a moderator. Scott's Armour as well. Our brother Scott's in the hood. What a pleasure to see you back again. Hopefully, I can catch you on Sunday, right? Look out for Scott's Armour. It's a duck as well. Good to see you back again. Dave A in the hood, as always. A pleasure to see you back again. Did I miss anyone? Probably I did. Mojo Shop. Are we going to go with that? Good to see you. My friend, regular, back again. Nikki as well. Good to see you. Who else did I see there? Just Kate. And no. Oh, where did she go? There she goes. Just Kate is back again. Hasdak as well. Our good friend back again. Pleasure to see you. Who else did I see? I did notice Dane. There we go. A pleasure. Much appreciated for joining. Who else did I see? Gary, of course, yeah. Our brother Gary back again. And my brother Danny is in the hood. What a pleasure to see Danny. My brother also, funnily enough, staying in the city that is Inverness in the Highlands of Scotland, right? Good to see you, Danny, back again. I'm surprised you're not in your bed. It's usually Danny's bedtime at the moment, right? So he might fall asleep during me yapping nonsense about geoengineering, right? We're going to get right into it. RMF as well. There you go. Good to see you back again. We've got quite a few people in the hood tonight. Jim M. Good to see you back again. Did I miss anyone? I probably did, but it's me. So you've got to give me a break. I don't think I did. I think I got everybody right. So a pleasure. Feel free to chat amongst yourself, right? But I'm going to get straight into it. I will try ACAM, or is it? Yeah, ACAM. I got it right the first time. I'm terrible, honestly. My eyesight is hopeless, and the writing's quite small, actually. Oh, I won't do that, actually. I'll end up making it worse. Do you know that when you try and fix any issue and you make it worse? That's usually me, right? In fact, I think that's the story of my life. Did we miss Frank the Tank? Frank the Information Tank? I don't think I seen Frank, to be fair. Or did I miss? Surely not, right? I'm sure Frank will be about anyway. He might join us later on. Yeah, Frank the Information Tank. That's his name now. And hopefully he'll be about. This could be one. Although he probably knows everything that we're going to cover. There's no point in him being here, to be honest. A lot of people, some of the stuff, a lot of people will know it, but a lot of the stuff, a lot of people, it'll be news to them. As a lot of it was news to me, to be honest, and we'll get into that. But when it comes to manipulating the weather or weather modification, it's not new. They've been doing it for a very long time. Put it this way, they've been doing it since before I was born. In fact, I think before my late father was born. So that'll give you an idea as to how long they've been at least attempting to manipulate the weather, right? And we'll get into that a wee bit more. Did I miss Rags? Maybe I did. I'm unsure if I missed him. Hello to Rags, right? Our Irish brother. So, we're going to get down to it. The geoengineering. When it comes to the geoengineering program, the number one go-to, it's Harvard University. Of course it is. Who else would it be? Maybe Oxford University. But they'll maybe come into the frame later on in the game, right? This is the very beginnings of the geoengineering deception, if you like, where they have their first test, a platform test, if you like. For some reason, I don't know why they're doing it. It's a bit of a farce, really, to be honest. It's stupid, but we'll cover that a wee bit more as well as we go on. But like I said, the go-to for all you need to know is indeed Harvard University. Anyone here from study at Harvard? DJ, did you attend? Frank possibly went there for a couple of years. I doubt it. He's not that silly, right? The main guy behind it, I think his name would be Dr. David Keefe. And yeah, I wonder what that guy done to end up in the position that he's in. Let's not go there, right? So we're going to cover a bit of the basics on geoengineering and also look a wee bit into past projects in regards to weather modification and the kind of origins of it, right? Like I said, a lot of it people will know. We've covered it plenty of times. There's so much to cover. But basically, we're going to cover a bit of the basics in regards to what it is and then take it from there, right? And I have got a video, but I'm unsure as to when I'm going to play it. So it could be for an interval, right? So geoengineering refers to a set of emerging technologies that could manipulate the environment and partially offset some of the impacts of climate change. Hooray! Combating the weather, yay! That's what we all want, right? Sure. Solar geoengineering in particular could not be a replacement for reducing emissions, which is mitigation, right? Which we've touched on in the past, or coping with a changing climate. Yet, it could supplement these efforts, right? So, along with mitigation and adaptation, geoengineering will be the key. It doesn't do anything, but it could take down the global temperature. Sure, whatever that is. What's the global temperature? How can there be a global temperature? Solar geoengineering benefits and risks. What? Risks? Of course, risks. Plenty risks and all unintended, right? Totally by accident. And it'll be totally worth it though. Sure. Let's go with that. Climate models have consistently shown that solar geoengineering, when used in moderation and combined with emission cuts, which is you, has the potential to reduce climate changes around the globe. For example, it could reduce climate impacts such as extreme temperatures, changes in water availability, and intensity of tropical storms. Yeah, I bet it could change that. completely. Water availability. I think we might be seeing a bit of manipulation with that already. Everything that they tend to talk about, it's already happening. Does anyone else notice that? It's like, yeah, well, that's already happening, actually. I think last night and the night before, I switched on the TV, and lo and behold, it was the BBC News that came on, the first thing that came on the TV, and they were talking about the flooding in Pakistan, seemingly extreme flooding, and it did look quite bad. Again, I don't know what to believe from the news. I certainly couldn't believe anything, but I'd imagine by the looks of it, that will be down to weather modification, without a doubt about it. They are driving it, pushing it big time. They want people to eventually say, look, we need to act now. We need to we need to inject particles into the atmosphere to reflect the sunlight. Anything that can help stop this extreme weather that's probably already being created due to the instruments that they have. Some of them we will likely touch on today. But it would be typical that the two times I switch on the TV, it was the news that came on. In both times they were talking about the flooding in Pakistan. I think they said that there was an area the size of the UK flooded, or a third of the country had been flooded. And I thought, yeah, I wonder what caused that, right? Totally nothing to do with any modification whatsoever. Sure. So, where did we get to there? However, any benefits come with novel risks and significant uncertainty. Yeah. For example, while the latest science might show some benefits globally, local impacts could vary more widely. Sorry, what? Yeah. How does that work? Oh, yeah, the global temperature came down, but the impacts locally, that was really bad. I mean, is it maybe it's just me, but I don't get that. People are going to suffer big time if they go ahead with the geoengineering program, and by the looks of it, they will go ahead with it. They're driving it now. There are a lot of other scientific uncertainties that are not yet well understood. No shit, right? But let's just go with it, sure. Not least the enormous governance challenges. Yeah, that's the big, well, at least one of the big issues in regards to geoengineering. Who's going to control it? We need a one world entity to control it, right? Because they're even talking about if countries do go ahead with geoengineering programs, it could lead to not just famine, drought, flooding, but even war. So it could even bring in itself a war between, I don't know, the UK and France, maybe. I don't know. The UK released a geoengineering program, for example. But a big storm came and it all landed in France, and the whole of France got flooded. I suppose, how are you going to go to war when your nation's flooded? You would be you would be on your knees, right? And if they're talking about nations going to war due to geoengineering, what sort of extent is the damage going to be? They must be expecting it to be pretty severe for a nation to then declare war on another for the weather. But look out for it, right? Also, Solar geoengineering does not address ocean acidification. Yeah, we've mentioned that before. So it's hopeless, it's pointless, there's no point in doing it. They're going to do it anyway. Every year, the ocean absorbs about 1/4 of the carbon dioxide we emit into the atmosphere, changing the chemistry of the oceans and harming marine ecosystems. Yeah. Given that solar geoengineering would not remove carbon dioxide from the atmosphere directly, but rather reflect sunlight back to space, it could do little to address this serious problem except via carbon cycle feedbacks, the process through which additional carbon is emitted into the atmosphere upon additional warming. Right. So again, there's no point in doing it. What would be the point? But people will demand it. It will get to a point where we must act. And I reckon, going by what I've seen, it's not going to be next year. It's going to be in 2024. But I think next year we're going to see the testing of solar geoengineering full scale compared to what it is now. That said, solar geoengineering could reduce rising temperatures, offsetting many impacts on the oceans. For example, by reducing sea surface temperatures, it could reduce the risk of coral bleaching events. Wow. And help to maintain conditions favorable for coral reefs, which seemingly, as the damage to coral reefs is largely caused by rising sea surface temperatures, followed by intensifying ocean acidification. That's what seemingly causes the destruction of coral reefs, right? An interesting one, the coral reefs. We might get into them in the future. Solar geoengineering could also reduce poleward shifts. Yeah, in species ranges, which has been posing serious risks to tropical fisheries, and it could lessen the amount of sea ice loss, which could reduce the impacts on high latitude ecosystems and climate, and help to limit changes in the ocean circulation and glacier melt. Right. So basically, either way, there's going to be changes in the world that we're in. If they don't go ahead with it, we're going to experience issues. If they do go ahead with it, there's going to be unintended effects. Not only that, there's going to be intended effects that are still effects, even if they claim they're good. In my opinion, they'll be bad. These are systems that you cannot tamper with. You do not do that. No way. Why they are doing it, I'm not really sure, but I could imagine it is not for good intention. And we practically are already there with it due to the decades of constant spraying and weather modification that we continuously see. In any case, solar geoengineering could not be a substitute for cutting carbon dioxide pollution. It could only be a potential supplement. Yay, supplement the climate crisis. Forget about the unintended consequences, right? Let's do it. And of course, when they talk about the experiment, they talk about the wee balloon, the wee balloon that they're going to put up in the sky into the stratosphere and spray. Then they're going to test it, or do their testing, if you like. And then they're going to go the stage further, the scientific test. Do you think they're going to be using a balloon then? Anybody? They won't be. I can tell you right now. Anyone want to take a guess at what they will be using? Of course, right? It wouldn't be hard to guess what they're going to eventually be using. And it will come to a point where they won't hide it, of course, because they can't hide it. But it's not already happening today, right? So there goes the wee balloon. I find this really funny. It cracks me up. It really does. That's the wee balloon there. In his wee garage hideout. I don't think it's a NASA balloon. Do NASA have balloons? Yeah, NASA have got balloons. Of course they do. Of course NASA have got balloons. NASA actually love a balloon, believe it or not. And they're not the only company who like a satellite balloon, right? Funny that. I would imagine they've only got one or two, right? Surely not any more than that. Because they've got drone satellites they can use. They don't need balloons, of course. Yeah. So that's the wee balloon. You want to make sure that doesn't get a catch on you, or you'll be up in the sky with it, spraying along with it, right? Getting hooked onto it. The balloon one I find quite interesting. I mean, what is it about? The experiment's completely useless. There's no point in it whatsoever. They may as well jump straight into a scientific test, but they're not. They're doing this platform test, I think they call it, for no reason whatsoever. But they keep pushing this image of the balloon, which kind of diverts it from what it really is, which is an aircraft. That's what it's going to be, and that's what it already is. Who they trying to kid, right? Oh, look, it's a big balloon. It's not an aircraft. Yeah. Of course, right? So the people behind it again is Harvard, and it's ScopeX is the project it's called. We've basically, I think, briefly touched on it in the past, maybe quite a few times, I think, actually. So we're going to have a look at ScopeX as well, and sticking on the Harvard website. And sticking with the balloon situation, right? Quite an interesting one, this. Because this is not the science flight, right? Like I just said, remember, that'll come yet. The platform test is a rather standard stratospheric balloon flight when viewed in the context of other balloon flights in 2019, for example. Estimates suggest there were more than 300 stratospheric balloon flights over the course of the year. Yeah. This platform test is interesting to us as engineers and scientists because we are hoping it will provide information about our equipment for the science flight. But stratospheric balloons are flown regularly. For example, Google launched at least 35 balloons in 2020, as is sought to build a new layer of connectivity technology in the stratosphere. Yeah, to expand internet access worldwide. Yeah, internet. Yeah. And would you Adam and Eve it? NASA usually launches 10 or more balloons each year. 10, 10 or more balloons each year as it carries out scientific and technological investigations. Yeah, sure. Including fundamental scientific discoveries that contribute to our understanding of the Earth, the solar system, and the universe. Wow. Swedish Space Corporation, for example, has flown balloons in partnership with NASA. Of course they have. And the French Space Agency and the Canadian Space Agency. So that they're all flying balloons. Who'd have thought it, right? Lots of balloons flying around the world. Yeah. Funny that. But there you go. Balloon galore. There's seemingly some of them. I think it's Google. These are some of the Google balloons that they've got. I've certainly met a few balloons in my time. I don't think I've seen any in the sky. Has anyone noticed any balloons flying about? Here's one here again, Google balloon. Looks a bit like I don't know, a UFO maybe. Anyone ever seen one? I think I might have seen one, but it never looked like that. It was more like a strange looking hot air balloon. And at the time I did think, well, it could be a weather balloon or a weather satellite balloon, if you want to go with that. But I think people have seen them in the sky, and they look a bit like that. So it could maybe just look like a wee cloud, or possibly a UFO. I don't know. But at night time, you probably wouldn't see it, right? A UFB, unidentified flying balloon. Is that what it would be? I don't know. Strange how they have so many balloons launched, right? What are they all about? These balloon satellites. What's the crack? I thought they had the technology to do away with these balloons that they used way back in the, I don't know, 40s, 30s, 20s maybe. But here we are today. Even Google. Yeah. I wonder if that's how, do you know how a lot of people say, well, if satellites weren't real, how do you explain Google Earth? Well, they put balloons in the sky, right? They attach cameras to balloons and they float about in the weather, basically. I'd imagine they're not even controlled. It's just away you go, and it records everything, I'd imagine. It's not a party without balloons, yeah. Rich knows the score, right? So we'll kind of come away from the balloons for a sec. Will Scopex develop hardware for geoengineering deployment? Yeah, good question, that, right? Who's going to be developing this hardware and these instruments that they're going to use? Who's going to own it? There seems to be a bit of an issue with patents and technology in regards to dispersing said particles on the masses, if you like. It's funny that. It's interesting. I think someone already owns it. Surely not, right? We'll get into that a wee bit more as we go on. So what do they say? Well, we are not conducting Scopex to develop hardware that can be used for deployment. In fact, this is one of the reasons why we chose to loft the particles using a balloon rather than an aircraft, since aircraft are more likely to be used for deployment. Yeah. Like they do now, right? Yeah, like they do now. Of course it's going to be aircraft that they use. So why are they even doing this with a balloon? Honestly, it's so stupid. But it's all part of the deception, right? It's a distraction almost. Of course it's going to be an aircraft. We knew from the very beginning it would be an aircraft. Why they went with a balloon, I don't know, but there you go, right? Overall, the purpose of ScopeX is not to advance our understanding of the aircraft or other platforms for the deployment of solar geoengineering. Yeah, because that's going to be someone else. I wonder who that could be. And yeah, I'd imagine it's going to look a wee bit like that. Shock horror. Of course it will. It'll be exactly like that. Do other environmental science experiments release materials outdoors? Question mark. Good question, right? Yeah. Surely not. Surely not without consent. Is there such thing as consent when it comes to government experiments? I don't think there is. What we live in is basically a petri dish. We live in basically a science laboratory. We're all subjects of the government and their buddies like Big Pharma, Bill Gates and the Rockefellers. Hooray! Happy days, right? We're no more than cattle, basically. We're complex sheep, if you like. And we now seemingly live in a complex world. Remember that time we all got together and said, do you know what? Let's build a world so complex that any given disaster is going to knock the whole thing out and we're all going to be absolutely finished. Remember that great idea? How we laughed, right? Yeah, that'll be wonderful. It'll be great. And here we are today. All these terrible issues in the world. How are we going to fix it? Who's going to control? Who's going to make the decisions? And again, the solution will be waiting in the wing. And it's going to be, of course it's going to be, a one world government, a one world body to make everything better again. Yay! And how the sheep will lap it up big time. Big time. So what else has been going on? Of course, we know about one or two experiments on the public back in I think the 1960s in the UK, where they sprayed a chemical that mimicked anthrax on the British public. The British military done it, or the UK government, if you like. And it was pretty bad, the outcome of that. And it's all there in black and white. But of course, the information, the truth never came out until later on. The unexpecting public never knew anything about it. But they went ahead with it. And from what I can remember, one of the materials that they did use, it mimicked anthrax, basically. It was anthrax. It's all there in black and white. So do other environmental science experiments release materials outdoors? Surely not. Not in this world that we're in. Well, yes, of course. Hooray, we're so lucky. A number of environmental science experiments release or have released materials outdoors to create controlled perturbation for the same essential reason we plan to do in ScopeX, to directly control an experimental variable which is crucial to scientific understanding. Yeah, it's crucial. Examples of experiments include free air carbon dioxide enrichment, which is FACE. That's an experiment some people might have heard of, actually. Anyone? Which release ozone and carbon dioxide? Anyone heard of it? It releases it into the air for long durations to understand the impacts of climate and air pollution on crops and natural ecosystems, or dispersion of air pollution and its penetration into the local environment. DAPL experiments, which have released sulfur hexafluoride. And I'm not even going to attempt that one. But I have heard about this, believe it or not. And from what I can remember, the perfluomethylcyclohexane is a solvent, and that has been used, released into urban air. Urban air. To study the transport of air pollutants. Yeah, sure. A solvent. These experiments differ in various ways, e.g., they have not released material into the stratosphere. Ah, right, so it's all good then, right? The upper atmosphere, they are listed here to merely show that there are environmental science experiments that release materials outdoors. Yeah, there definitely is. And there's a lot more than that have happened. Like I mentioned, the germ war games, look it up in the UK. It's all there in black and white. We're no more than a test subject living in a bloody petri dish in a gigantic laboratory. A lab rat probably gets a better life than the majority of people in the beast system, because that's what it is. Let's face it. Speaking of let's face it, let me grab a drink. Here's the experiment face. Yay! Had to wet the whistle, right? Are we still going? What's going on here? There we go. We're still rolling. I thought I had an issue. I thought we were down. I thought, oh no, I've been talking and we're finished. I've been cut off, but from what I can see, we're still going, right? Hopefully, right across the board. So anyone heard of this experiment before? I mean, who do these people think they are, right? Honestly, tampering with all these different experiments, which are clearly not good. There's clearly bad intentions involved with it. This is an experiment to be fair, I had never heard of it. Here's its setup here. As you can see, they've got these circles, basically kill circles, if you like. A giant kill grid of them. What do people make of that? Has anyone ever seen this before? I bet you Frank has, right? Frank the information tank. Yeah, I've seen it. Frank worked there. He's got documents on it. I'm unsure. I don't think many people would have heard of it. But I could be wrong. Some people might know of it. But it's another example of an area where they carry out their dirty tests, if you like. Let's call it that, right? And of course, they've got these circles where they have ecosystems that they've built. Then they test them with air pollution. And God only knows what else. I wouldn't even like to know. But you can see the ring of sort of towers, metal towers that go round. I think there's an image here. That'll give you an idea, right? What does it look like? It reminds me of something, but I can't remember. I can't remember what it reminds me of. Here's them here, close up. Looks a bit like a crucifix, I thought. Then I'd imagine the gas comes out of these. And they gas the ecosystem around it. Then do their wee testing to see how many kills that they got. But that's an example of a chemical releasing experiment, which I believe is in America. I could be wrong. It could be the UK. It's good. I think it's one of them. Dardarius in the hood. Good to see you back again. Possibly, yeah. I can see what you're saying there, but it was more something I had seen locally in terms of structure. It might come to me, but it's certainly a topic that we could get into again. It's not quite. It is. I mean, it's not. It's not an aeroplane in the sky spraying, but it kind of is a form of geoengineering. They do have ground equipment that help in cloud seeding or cloud manipulation. They certainly have the technology for that. There's many ways they can at least attempt to manipulate the weather, and by releasing certain toxins or certain gases, they can certainly attempt it, right? Kind of like crop circles, yeah. It's wee ecosystems that they've built to then basically poison. I think it might be the UK. We might get back to that one, right? Excuse me. We might get back to it. But there's really, in my opinion, only one big player when it comes to geoengineering or weather modification, weather manipulation. And that is, of course, yeah, NASA. Are they not a space agency? Some people might think they are. Does anyone think that NASA are a space agency? Nope. Does anyone think that NASA went to the moon? The what now? Yeah, exactly, right? Oh, man. Surely not. I don't think anyone buys it anymore. No one buys it. I see my friend Diane in the hood. Good to see Diane back again. Is it Luke as well? And the geo interfering, yeah, I like it. Why did I should have thought of that, right? I should have thought of that name. That would have been a good name. That geo interfering. I did kind of think geo something, but I never thought that. So I feel stupid now. So thank you very much, right? I feel like an idiot now, and now I can't use it because it wasn't originally me. But geo interfering is certainly exactly what it is. That's a good way of explaining the whole situation when it comes to weather modification or manipulation. Certainly. So good to see you. Mike Mitt as well in the hood. And of course, Frank. A pleasure to see our brother Frank, who's straight in with the information, right? Sharky as well in the hood. Good to see you back again. Did I miss anyone? Probably I did. But we are rolling. There is a few bits to get through, so we're going to continue with it, right? Of course, NASA. Yeah. Who else but NASA? They seem to be the go-to when it comes to geoengineering, all things weather. Basically, they're a weather agency. They're certainly more of a weather agency than a space agency. How can you be a space agency when you've never even went to space? I'm more of a space agency than NASA. and make of that what you wish, right? So, we're now going to get into good old NASA. What does NASA stand for? Not a space agency. Of course it is, right? Never a straight answer. Why did they not go back to the moon? Why did you not go back to the moon? It's been 100 million years since we went. Oh, we destroyed the technology. We had the technology, then we destroyed it, and now we can't build it back again. Right? We just simply can't. Don't ask any more questions. Just believe the expert scientist. Right? So they had the technology to do it. Then they destroyed it, and now they can't get it again. Oh, but they are going back to the moon. When is it? This year? Well, next year? Or the year after? Yeah. And what happened to... Oh, man. What happened to the claims made by the Nazi von Braun? The super rocket scientist, yay, von Braun, cream of the crop, right? This smart German Nazi, Hitler's right-hand man for the rockets. What did he tell us? What did he stand up and say? He said, we'll colonize the moon by 1980. Yeah. We will colonize Mars by 1990. Yeah. And we will colonize other universes by the year 2000. Should I tell him? Or will you, right? Good old von Braun. Lie after lie after lie after lie, year after year after year, and people still don't fucking see it. Honestly. And while we're on von Braun, look at von Braun's gravestone, and that might tell you a wee bit about the world that we're in, right? Good old NASA, yeah. Responding to the climate change. What, the weather? Why are we responding to the weather? What are NASA meant to be exactly? Weather heroes. Dun, 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 dun. It's raining in Elgin. Quick phone NASA. They're going to come out with their super duper aeroplane and give us some data. Yeah. They're going to get their geoengineering fleet to save the day and block out the sun. Yay! How we cheered, right? Sure. Vital signs of the planet. We've mentioned this before. NASA talk about this quite a lot. The vital signs of the planet are, so NASA reads the vital signs of the... No one else gets to read it. NASA read it. NASA are the doctor. NASA is the doctor at the switch of the life support machine. They'll tell you what the vital signs are if we're going to go or if we're not going to go. Right? We're so lucky. I mean, we should be grateful, right? That we've got NASA, this trillion, billion, million, gazillion dollar entity looking after us. And they're ever so trustworthy and they care about you and me so much, right? Dr. NASA. Good old Dr. NASA looking out for the world. Hip, hip, hooray. Yeah. NASA is a world leader in climate studies and earth science. Yeah, the world leader in climate studies. Who else is there to compete against? The British Geological Organization, the Met Office. I think that's about the only competitor when it comes to climate study data. While its role is not to set climate policy or prescribe particular responses or solutions to climate change, oh, no, of course not, right? Its purview does include providing the robust scientific data needed to understand climate change, the key to it all. NASA then makes this information available to the global community, the public, policy and decision makers, and scientific and planning agencies around the world. Yeah, all waiting in the wings for NASA to give them the data that says we need to start geoengineering. Of course, NASA don't want to touch that, right? No, we just do the data. Yeah, of course, someone else will do the spraying, which is totally not happening today. NASA, with its eyes on the Earth. You always kind of think that NASA would be looking out to space, but seemingly they actually have their eyes on the Earth. So maybe that's where the balloons come in then, right? Funny as well, because how many years now have NASA had their eye on the Earth? And how much of the Earth has been unexplored, undiscovered, unreached, unseen? Yet NASA have been looking at it for decades. The Space Agency, surveillance agency maybe. Let's go with that. So it's got its eyes on the Earth and wealth of knowledge on Earth's climate. Yeah, wealth of knowledge. The key holder of knowledge. Good old NASA. Yeah, sounds very familiar, right? Is one of the world's experts in climate science. Yeah, they like to get that across, right? NASA's role is to provide the robust scientific data needed to understand climate change. For example, data from agencies Gravity Recovery and Climate Experiment, GRACE. Anyone know about the GRACE? The GRACE follow-on mission? The Ice Cloud and Land Elevation Satellite, IceSat 1 and 2. Anyone know about them? Laser focus satellites. Sounds great, right? IceSat 2 missions have shown rapid changes in the Earth's great ice sheets. Oh, the polar bears, the penguins. Quick, geoengineering. The Sentinel-6 Michael Furlich and the Jason series of missions have documented rising global sea level since 1992. Sure. So, a lot of people that I come across say to me that the sea level's not rising. They stay beside the sea and they've said, well, it's not rising. It hasn't been rising. And they've stayed there their whole life. And they've not noticed any difference whatsoever. But here we have, thanks to NASA and the IceSat laser focus satellite, they're telling us that sea levels have been rising since 1992. You'd think we'd be underwater by now, right? Yeah. I find it hard to believe how sea levels could rise globally, if you like. How can sea levels rise right across the world when the sea is seemingly pulled by the sun and the moon in different directions? The same as how can we have a global temperature? I don't think we can. I think the global temperature in itself is a complete myth. Incoming strike. We're doomed, right? I mean, it has to be. There is no global temperature. You can't take a global temperature. The temperature varies in regions right across the world constantly. It's never the same anywhere. In my view, you can't take a global reading of the Earth's temperature. You just can't. And it's typical of the deception that we're in. Space lasers! ISAT 2 and 1. Brought to you by NASA. Save the penguins, right? And look at this is genuine from the NASA website. You'd think I'd made it up, right? You'd think you'd have thought that I made it up. Space lasers. Yeah. And look at the photo they've got. They always tend to show you like a domed flat Earth. They never tend to, it's never really a globe. They never show you the full globe. Even when they do the ISS spacewalk, you never ever get to see a full globe, right? It's always just a section of it and no more. On the space station, personally, I don't believe there is a space station in the sky. I don't believe that there is. But even going by NASA's own words, it is not in space. It's in low Earth orbit. Whatever it is that they claim is the space station, it is not in space. Right? Let's get that clear. I certainly don't. In my own view, I don't buy that it's even in any sort of orbit. I think what they show us in regards to the video of the ISS and the astronauts outside is probably in a studio CGI, or like where they have the training in a swimming pool. And they have got them. It's all there. And that might explain the bubbles that you get in space, right? A wee bubble just floating past an astronaut. Wee. I'm sure there was a mouse in one of them. A wee mouse. I can't remember what it was. I think it might have been a SpaceX flight. I'm sure there was a wee mouse or a wee rat. I thought it was funny because a wee rat ratted them out, right? They got ratted out by the wee rat, a wee space rat that never had a spacesuit on. There you go. What's Anthony saying? The Earth's flat and there's no space station. It's done with CGI and green screen. Anthony knows the score, right? I think they have a mixture of ways that they do it. But I think you could be right in regards to CGI. I think green screen's a bit old school, right? But they have been caught with green screen applications going on in NASA studios. And that's quite funny. And again, you've got to question that. I mean, that could be deliberate as well. A deliberate leak, right? You've got to question everything. But I don't think there's any doubt whatsoever that the stuff we get from NASA, it's all BS, put it that way. You can't believe any of it. Not one thing. That's also why, and some people don't like it when I say this, but you can't take evidence from NASA to prove anything. So you can't take evidence from NASA to prove that the Earth's a globe. But you also can't take NASA footage to prove that it's flat or other. You simply can't. You could not believe them. Right? So you can't use NASA footage to prove anything. And some people don't like that because they've showed me NASA footage that they reckon proves the Earth's flat. When you can't believe NASA footage, and they know that. They know that themselves, but they reckon it proves it. I'm sorry, but it doesn't. Like I said, I would not believe anything they put out, even if you think it's by accident. It likely won't be. So anything we get from NASA, we always take it with a pinch of salt, right? They cannot be trusted, and God only knows what they're planning on doing with their space laser satellites, which are attached to big balloons that look like UFOs, right? Mike E in the hood as well. Good to see Mike E. Yeah, not a space agency. Exactly what I said. Never a straight answer, right? Good to see you back again, Mick, even. I think I said Mike. We'll go with Mick, right? I'll blame my eyesight. So let's jump back into it. We're still going. Are we? Yeah, we are still going. I see Aaron as well. My brother Aaron is back again. Good morning from Australia, all the way down under. Good eye, mate. I won't do any more Australian impressions, don't worry, right? I'm here all week, it's cool. Good to see Aaron back again. Anyone seen this bad boy before? Sabri. Dun, 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 dun. The A-Team. Of course, this is basically NASA, another branch, another extension of NASA. Yeah. And look at this wonderful aeroplane that they've got. Aircraft, super aeroplane, spacecraft. I wonder what they could use this for. Remember how we seen that there's no aeroplanes they can use to spray in the stratosphere. They don't exist, right? We've not got the technology for it. I wonder if NASA have got the technology for it. I think they might. So, does this look familiar to anyone? The Sabri badge? And again, it's not showing you a globe. It shows you basically what some people could describe as a flat Earth. A dome Earth, maybe. Yep. They certainly do love an acronym. That is for sure. It's endless, honestly. And that is a simple but effective form of confusion. Very simple, very effective. Very effective. It always has been. And they'll never stop using it. But yeah, good to see RMF in the hood. Stratospheric aerosol process, budget, and radiative effects. What? So these must be the guys, right? These are the go-to for stratospheric aerosol processes, budget, and radiative effects. Yeah. I'm beginning to think NASA's not a space agency after all. Yeah. And of course, what this should say is NASA, not Sabri. It's NASA. That's who it is. They could put any name they want. It is still NASA, right? SABRI is an extended airborne science measurement. Wait a sec. SABRI is an extended airborne science measurement program to study the transport, chemistry, microphysics, and radiative properties of aerosols in the upper troposphere and lower stratosphere. Yeah. The project will utilize the NASA WB-57 high-altitude research aircraft with a payload of sampling instruments. Yeah. Yes, sampling instruments. The SABRI deployments are designed to provide extensive detailed measurements of aerosol size, distributions, composition, and radiative properties, along with relevant trace gas species in different regions and seasons. Yeah. Interesting that, right? It sounds a bit like this ScopeX experiment. Why don't they just use the NASA WB-57? Why are they using a wee balloon? Why don't they just use this guy and attach another instrument to it? I'm sure it would be capable of it. So there it goes there. In all her glory, can we see that? It's got all the mod cons, right? Now, it doesn't mention a spraying dispersion nozzle, but I'd imagine it's got one. I think it might be in one of the pods, one of the left and right pods. The Roscoe one, which is a NASA. I'm sure it's saying it's LiDAR. I think it'll be a spraying tank, to be honest. But when they are spraying, they can attach canisters to the wing. And I'll show you an example of that in a sec, right? I'll show you it now while I'm going to remember. So, where is it? I've got it here. It was meant to be on the screen. It's meant to be on the screen as a screensaver. Oh, what have I done? We're still rolling. Where is it? Oh, here it goes. So here's an example, right, of a wing that's got weather modifying equipment attached to it. So here it is. So that gives you a bit of an example of what they would do. Obviously, on this aircraft that they're showing us, it doesn't mention anything like that, but you can clearly see there's space for it. It wouldn't be in the way of anything if it got attached to it. So in my personal view, this aircraft, this NASA aircraft, it looks like it looks like it will be used for both testing and dispersing, but it's not telling us that they're dispersing it. It's only telling us they're testing the atmosphere, the molecules, the air. Now, what would be the point in having these instruments to do these tests if they never had the ability to spray aerosols? Think about that one, right? So that's SABRI. And of course, there's another extension of NASA, another tentacle that comes from the octopus that is NASA. And it's this one here, NOAA. another another breakdown of the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration. Hooray! Now, I mean, is that an eagle in the picture? Because to me, it's not an eagle. I don't think it is. I think it's two horns, right? It's not an eagle. Where's the head of the eagle? Why is it not a proper bird, if it is a bird? It's the horns of Satan. Of course it is. In my opinion, that's what it is. It's not a bird. It's the horns of Satan in that one. So they've got Noah as well, doing a bit of their dirty work. And again, it's another extension of NASA and the American government. But they've got a role to play as well. At the direction of Congress, in 2020, NOAA is a leading and multi-year research initiative to investigate natural and human activities that might alter the reflectivity of the stratosphere and the marine boundary layer, and the potential impact of those activities on the Earth system. Yeah. It'll have potential impacts on the Earth system, all right. So everything's all in place, basically. They've got everything waiting, all their entities, all their organizations, and all the governments right across the board. Well, at least right across NATO-stan, right? Get it? NATO-stan? Right across NATO-stan. Every government is implementing laws, adopting amendments, putting forward bills, climate change bills, where they will allow the funding and process of mitigation, which will include geoengineering. It will happen. And in my view, it needs to not happen. It needs to be stopped as soon as possible. Noah again. Strengthening the scientific foundation to inform policy decisions related to regulating global emissions that impact the stratosphere. Yeah. So what are they going to do? What's the regulations going to involve, right? Answers on a postcard. And the potential injection of material into the stratosphere to combat global warming. Yeah. Yeah. It's all there set up, waiting, right? All they need now is the injection of material. It's the only thing that's missing, and it's not already happening, right? Sure. This project is an extended airborne science measurement program utilizing the NASA WB-57 high-altitude research aircraft to study the transport chemistry, microphysics, and radiative properties of aerosols in the upper troposphere and lower atmosphere, right? Like we discussed. They certainly do love an occult looking symbol or a Masonic looking symbol. And again, like I said, they don't show you the full globe Earth again. It's only the half Earth, or a dome Earth if you like, and it's Noah again at the Chemical Sciences Laboratory in Boulder, Colorado, USA. Yay! Anyone know of it? Here's a few, just while we're here, in regards to climate change anyway. and a few regulars at the bottom. Now you've got to name them all, right? Who can name them all? I don't think I could even name them all. I think I could name maybe... Actually, maybe I could. I think there's 4 or 5 that I can't name in total there. But the Extinction Rebellion one stands out like a sore thumb, right? With the symmetrical, the 2 triangles facing each other. And anytime I think about that now, of course, who do I think about? The NASA scientist, seemingly, who is also in Extinction Rebellion. Remember what he said? We're not lying. We're not exaggerating. This is so bad. I can't do his voice, but I mean, why would he come out and say that? We're not lying. We're not exaggerating. We're not making it up. It's not a conspiracy theory. Don't go believe in any conspiracy theories. Believe NASA. And that's it, right? Good old NASA, of course. Who else but? I want to show you this document here. It's a magazine that came out in February of this year. Controlling climate! Yay! It would only take one country watching its crops shrivel or its water run dry, deciding to take a chance to set a global climate experiment in motion. What, that one crop that shriveled? Quickly, geoengineering. Right, I think we're not far away from that point being crossed. Now remember, this got issued in February of 2022. What month are we in now? September. I reckon by the end of this year, there's going to be a huge outcry for it to go ahead in regards to solar radiation management. They mention a point there about weather modification in China. A Chinese meteorological worker prepares a rocket with cloud-seeding chemicals in an effort to break a decade-long drought in Beijing. Yay! And it points to, which is in the photo, you can't see the full picture, but it's basically an image of snow falling. Snow falls over the Woman Gate of the... Sorry. Burp coming up. Over the Woman Gate of the Forbidden City in February 2009. The successful result, Chinese officials said, of their effort to seed the clouds with precipitation-causing chemicals. Yeah, in 2009. The Chinese were trying to modify the weather. But it goes back way, way, way before then, I can assure you. Anyone want to take a hazard at what date it goes back to, at least in what they tell us? Anyone read this magazine? Imagine reading this. Imagine buying this magazine from a shop and reading it. Oh, man. Surely no one ever done that, right? Surely to God, you'd have to be studying the climate to read anything like this, surely. In fact, the storm in February 2009 was the result of a remarkable confluence of cold air, cloud skies, and 313 sticks of silver iodine fired into the atmosphere by weather engineers, hoping to make something out of nothing. Yay! Their success in tinkering with the weather underscores a growing risk that has not received the serious international debate it deserves. What happens if someone in our ever-warming world decides to tinker with the climate? Yeah. What does happen then? What do you think would be the outcome? Not a good one, right? Not a good one. Technologies that could block the sun's rays or siphon huge amounts of carbon from the air are not that far out of reach. Yeah. A recent RAND analysis found they could have world-altering consequences that would make a snowstorm in Beijing look mild by comparison. Yeah. Yet, the international community has not built any real consensus around such basic questions as when such technologies would ever be used, how or by whom. Yeah. Who's going to control it, right? That seems to be one of the it seems to always be one of the bottom line questions. Who's going to govern it? Quote, some of these technologies have been almost taboo to talk about. Close quote. Conspiracy theorist. You can't control the weather. It's a conspiracy. It's ice crystals. Any of that sound familiar? I shouldn't laugh, right? Remember the days when weather modification was looked at as a conspiracy? How far behind were we? Quote, but if we don't get our act together with climate mitigation, there might be real pressure to turn to them in the future. Say what now? Yeah, right. We want to make sure that we can do it safely and with some understanding in the international community. Yeah. Of course, right? The international community. It needs to be governed. All part of the big plan, right? I want to take you to this document here. Whose climate intervention, right? Another solar geoengineering document. August 2001. Proposals for slowing climate change by reflecting sunlight back to space, known as solar geoengineering, SG, are gaining traction in climate policy, given SG's capacity to slow warming without reducing carbon emissions, said the climate modelling, or the computer modelling even. Prominent criticism suggests that it will enable fossil-fueled business as usual. This assessment is not without merit, yet the primary funders of SG research do not emanate from fossil capital, right? We analyze sources of funding for SG research, finding close ties to financial and technological capital, as well as a number of billionaire philanthropists. Yeah. Why would they be in on it? These corporate sectors and associated philanthropies comprise part of, quote, climate capital, close quote. It's becoming a business. The fraction of the capitalist class aligned with climate action, we argue that SG is being positioned as a tactic for enabling an incremental, market-driven decarbonization. Explore key institutional Explore key institutions advocating this approach in US climate policy and conclude that SG is poised to serve as a tool for class compromise between fossil and climate capital. More division, more chaos, basically. And of course, when it comes to the billionaires, it's all about the money, right? Moving the money, moving the capital. They don't care about anything else. It's all about the money. Of course it is. So who are some of these people? We'll get into it a wee bit more. Again, sticking with the document, right? As the climate crisis bears down on communities and ecosystems across the planet, unconcerted political action remains inadequate. Proposals for extreme technological interventions into the climate system are gaining traction in climate policy. Yeah, I bet they are. One such intervention is solar geoengineering, proposed technologies that could potentially cool the planet by modifying the Earth, basically. Yeah. Proposed technologies that could potentially cool the planet. Where am I now? I've completely lost my place. SG proposals include brightening clouds over the ocean, increasing Arctic reflectivity by spreading glass microspheres across the ice. What now? We have mentioned that one in the past. These wee glass balls that they're going to put on the ice and put on the water. I think there's plastic ones as well that they talk about. Or continually spraying aerosols into the lower stratosphere to block a fraction of solar radiation from entering Earth's atmosphere. A fraction. The latter approach, referred to as stratospheric aerosol injection, SAI, is a leading SG proposal owing to the fact that it is likely cheap, fast-acting, and operative at the planetary scale, with current research examining ways to fine-tune SAI to achieve desired effects while minimizing adverse impacts. Giving these characteristics, a range of governments have supported SG research since 2008, including Australia, China, India, Germany, the UK, and the United States. Shock, horror. Who'd have thought it, right? Right across NATO stan. Yeah, I wonder what's been happening in Australia with the weather. I wonder what's been happening in China, India, Germany, the UK, the big US, all signing up to geoengineering research in 2008. Yeah. So who are these people funding such an experiment? Anyone heard of the company Silver Lining? I think I've actually covered them before. A big player, Silver Lining, involved with Goldman Sachs and JP Morgan, of course, right? They're always there or thereabouts. Bill Gates at the very bottom, putting in millions of his money, his hard-earned money. Why is Bill Gates funding solar geoengineering and buying up all the farmland? Anyone want to take a stab at that? Answers on a postcard, right? Yeah. So Bill Gates is basically got a branch that he calls Fierce or FICE, and it's Bill Gates's personal fund for energy and geoengineering research. His own personal fund, administered by geoengineering researchers Ken Caldera and Dr. David Keefe. Yeah, that guy, Dr. David Keefe. He's the main funder, or one of the main characters that's being funded by Bill Gates. He's the face of the Harvard Scopex experiment. Shock horror, right? Where would we be without Bill Gates, I wonder? Anyone notice any of these companies? Environmental Defence Fund? Who does that involve? Citicorp or Citigroup? Yeah. Is it General Electric? GE? McDonald's? Wow. Of course. Yeah. McDonald's. Shell? Of course, Shell. Tyson? Walmart? Yeah. All the usual suspects then, right? Walmart, of course. McDonald's, wow. It's quite comical, really, but it's to be expected. None of these surprise me. General Motors at the bottom there, with the Alfred P. Salon Foundation. Yeah, pumping in the money. Arizona State University. They're also practicing geoengineering. Hip hip hooray, right? I think Bill Gates gets mentioned again. So he's got his own wee personal fund, and then he funds it himself as well. The FICER and the rest of them. So how much in total does Bill Gates put into it? I'd imagine they wouldn't even tell us the exact figure. But we're so lucky again, right? All these billionaires of the world looking out for us. Bill Gates, William Hewitt. Anyone know of that guy? Alan Parker, DFS Group. Julian C. Baker, billionaire manager of Baker Brothers Advisors Hedge Fund. Yeah. All the good guys then, right? Sure. All the good guys. I'm sure there's nothing to worry about. Yeah. Dustin Moskovitz, the co-founder of Facebook. Shock horror. And his wife. Wow. Yeah. Not Mark Zuckerberg, but the other guy, Dustin. Rachel Pritzker. Anyone know of her? Family fortune. Chris and Crystal Satcha. That might ring a bell, right? David Vogel and Theus Lopez Vogel. Is it Vogel? We'll go with that. Again, hedge funds. Wow. Nicholas Zenstorm. Wow. Fitting name, that one, right? Of course, Zenstorm. And what did he do? He's seemingly the founder of Skype. So all the good guys looking out for us, funding the geoengineering, pumping in billions now, year after year. This is going ahead and it needs to be stopped, right? Now, if they came to me or you in the street and said, would you like to fund solar radiation management? You would tell them where to go. But when it comes to these guys, it's a different story. And they will see it as an opportunity, not a disaster. There's no such thing as a disaster for these entities. They capitalize on anything whatsoever. Now, before I show you this document quickly, I'm going to play a video, right? It's related to the geoengineering, but it gives me a chance to grab a quick drink. We're still rolling, we're still going, great stuff. Chat away. I will even. Smoke Steve in the hood. Good to see Smoke Steve back again. I only realised I only just subscribed on my backup channel to your channel, so I apologise. I thought I had, but I have now, so I will be looking out for any streams that you do, right? And I look forward to engaging. So good to see Steve and Carmel, beautiful Carmel back again, and Mike Met in the hood, Spanish Chicken as well, back again. Good to see you. We've got quite a few bits still to cover. Let me see what we on number 43. I think I've got about 60 to go through. So we're over halfway over the mark, hopefully. Right, I've been trying my best to go as quick as I can because there's so much to get into, right? But I do like to engage as well. So I'll play the VR. Are we going to call it that? I think it's about 5 minutes long, but it is related to the geoengineering program, right? It's not just some random video like what I usually do. So I'm going to hopefully find it and play it, right? If I can at least achieve that much, we're doing good. Where is it? Is it there? There it goes. So what it is, it's a kind of a news broadcast in regards to geoengineering and wee Billy Rockefeller, wee Devil Bill, as I like to call him. That's his name now, Devil Bill. And you should know why I'm calling him Devil Bill. If you don't know why, then you need to look it up, right? So I'll run the video. It's got a wee intro, a kind of channel intro, and then you'll see the video, the news video, right, for about 5 minutes. And it gives me a chance to get a coffee or a drink of water even. But it doesn't give you one because you've still got to watch it. Right, so hopefully you've grabbed one in the beforehand even. And you can watch the video because I'm about to play it now.
If it holds near and dear to you that you like to be able to, anyway, from Charlotte, one another line going from in Florida down to Tampa of Putin's kleptocracy.
The world is a lie. Nothing is real. The world is a lie. There is nothing I can feel. Mama didn't tell me that the world is unreal. Imaginary story, lies and unreal. The truth, the lies and the truth and fairy tale is not the Prince of Wales. I never get told what is real and true. That's why I put truth out of the blue. Never really did. No one really cares what our heart it hurts.
First phase of Scopex will cost around $3 million, with much more needed for wider research on solar geoengineering. To this point, stratosphere injections have only been tested with climate modeling. In the UK, a government-funded solar radiation management test called SPICE was cancelled in 2012 because of issues with patents.
And we're not trying to develop any technology that is patented or where we want to make money with this later on.
A study last year found that no existing aircraft can inject the stratosphere at a high enough altitude, but developing a new high-altitude tanker would not be technologically difficult or prohibitively expensive. Nozzles still need to be designed that can continuously blast out trillions of particles, and scientists still need to decide what chemicals those particles should be made of. But unlike cloud brightening, which is another solar reflection technique, the tech needed for stratospheric injections is not far off.
The technology is not the main thing that's holding this back. The main thing that's holding it back is the uncertainty about what the exact effects would be and the positives and negatives of its effects, and the governance and decision-making process for implementing it.
Other radical attempts to control climate change have been tested in the past, like when one California businessman dumped 100 tons of iron dust in the Pacific to spawn the growth of carbon-absorbing plankton. But unlike small, sometimes rogue experiments, planet-wide solar geoengineering will require buy-in from the international community.
In our simulations we found China got warmer and drier relative to the past when you stabilized global temperature, and India was now cooler and wetter. So you can see there how, international relations around using this technology could become complicated.
I mean, we can't even decide on what to do about emissions of greenhouse gases. And so how are we going to decide on setting the planetary thermostat?
There's the real concern that we won't be able to reach agreement, we being the entire planet. And so there's the prospect that countries just go ahead and do solar geoengineering, and that causes disagreement, conflict, tension, even possibly war.
Go ahead and do solar geoengineering, and that causes disagreement, conflict, tension, even possibly war. Disagreement, conflict, tension, even possibly war.
For now, the failure to rapidly reduce emissions has prompted more exploration of alternative solutions like carbon dioxide removal and solar geoengineering. But scientists warn we will still need to reduce emissions too.
If we're not cutting CO2 emissions at the same time, from my perspective, there's little point in doing this because you would have to start using ever-increasing amounts.
No responsible scientist says that it's a silver bullet. All the responsible scientists say this is something that we deploy if we had to, alongside all the other stuff that we already have to do.
The U.S. Academies of Sciences is holding a series of meetings to study solar geoengineering, including one at Stanford this month. The committee will issue a report next year with recommendations for how, or if, solar geoengineering research should continue. Some scientists say the research is necessary in order to arm future generations with the ability to enact this backup plan, even though it seems nearly impossible now.
We ought to start working on this solar climate engineering problem right now with as much urgency as we can, so that if we want to deploy it in a decade or so, we understand what we have to do.
This is a real moral horror. Especially in a situation where we're not doing all the things that we could be doing to minimize the risks of climate catastrophe now.
But experts do agree that more public awareness is needed around solar geoengineering, because within a couple decades, for better or worse, it could be part of the solution, helping return the planet to pre-industrial temperatures.
Modelling evidence gathered over the last decade has pretty consistently found that a moderate amount of solar geoengineering could significantly reduce many of the impacts of climate change. But it can't be a solution because it doesn't return the climate system back to how it was. It doesn't do anything about things like ocean acidification. So whatever happens, we've got to cut our CO2 to zero. So right now, we need more research to understand this better and a broader conversation so that all of the world's nations have a seat at the table when this is discussed.
And a broader conversation so that all of the world's nations have a seat at the table.
Are we back again? Oh man, unbelievable. We had the video ended and there was no sound. And I couldn't see the comments. Oh man. I couldn't even see the comments. Do you know this? It's all right because I can edit it out. I'll have to edit it out. Man. I was sitting yapping. I don't even know where I got to be honest. I can't even blame anyone but myself. So we had an audio issue. I think, where did we get to? I think we read that, right? Did we? I did, but I don't know if you heard it. Anyway, the statement's expired, right? They put out a statement that had an expiry date. And you might have been able to read it. It's all the usual suspects, but they talk about putting pipes in the ocean in the bottom one. Number 3, manipulating the ocean, basically. You don't hear much about that one now, but we know about all the common suspects when it comes to geoengineering. And like I said, it's out of date. The statement it was in force until January 2017. Funny how they can know when a statement's going to be out of date. They released it in 2013, right? If we go back. I don't think you would have heard any of that, to be honest. One of these days, I'm going to get it right. I'll at least live in that hope, right? So it came out in 2013, but they knew then it would only be valid until 2017, unless superseded by a new statement. Of course, they know the agenda, right? Big time. And while I was muted, I wanted to mention weather, or at least hurricanes, right? Tornadoes, maybe. Is there anyone? I think we're in hurricane season now. Over in America. Am I right in thinking that? I think they released all the names of the hurricanes. They know them all by name. They know what they're going to do. They know where they're going to go. Is there anyone here who thinks that they can manipulate a hurricane and steer it, control it, drive it in a certain direction? I think they can. I certainly wouldn't rule it out, but I think that they can. And I think they probably have been for quite a while now, to be fair. So we might have someone who is potentially going to be affected by a hurricane. We don't get many in the UK. I think very small hurricanes that don't cause much damage, so no one really pays them much attention, but that could change, right? That could certainly change. And if it does, that's another thing that they're going to point to and say, well, what's the solution? SRM, Solar Radiation Management, SG, Solar Geoengineering, SAI, Solar Aerosol Injection. The list goes on, right? Let me see if I can make that bigger. I don't think this is the names of the current hurricanes that they're expecting. I think that might be an old one. Has anyone ever heard the term hurricane hawking? Anyone familiar with hawking hurricanes? Does that ring a bell for anyone? I did ask that question about 10 minutes ago. Of course, but the mic was muted. Yeah, that's what I meant to say. The mic was muted, right? But the term hurricane hawking is not a new term. I've not made it up. I can't claim it. I was going to call the show Weather Hawking and make it a continuation. But I went with Weather Fury, and you'll see why as well. So, not many people have heard of it. Scott's away, is he? He was getting annoyed at listening to a muted mic. Of course, he'd probably prefer the silence than me talking about horrific geoengineering. Good to see Scott's armor. Hopefully, I'll catch you on Sunday night. In fact, yeah, I think I should be available to listen, right? So I'll be about for sure. Good to see you tonight, and hopefully you have a good day tomorrow and Saturday, and I'll see you again on Sunday, the day of rest, right? I'm unsure. I think I'm busy Friday and Saturday, but I should be all right Sunday. So, good night to Scott's Armour. Here's an article here that came out in 2013. Hurricane hacking! Yeah! Let's hack a hurricane. What could go wrong, right? I mean, where do these people get their ideas from? Bill Gates at the pits of hell with his notebook of evil ideas. Let's hack a hurricane! Yay! Battling the big ones with Project Storm Fury. What? Yeah. Alma was queen for a day. For less than 24 hours on May 20th, 2021, when the tropical storm blossomed briefly into a hurricane. Yeah. Hacking hurricanes. Sounds great, right? I'll be honest, I had never heard of it either until I seen this article in the Project Storm Fury. The ESSA, Navy Hurricane Research and Modification Program, will attempt to seed hurricanes massively and repeatedly to learn whether the force of these storms can be diminished. Just that. They just wanted to learn that, right? Nothing else. Not if they could increase it. Sure, the project's major goal this season is to repeat the eyewall seeding experiments conducted in 1969 in the hope of confirming the results. Other experiments planned for the 1970 season include seeding of hurricane rain bands and rain sectors, and continuation of experiments on lines of tropical cumulus clouds not associated with hurricanes in the 1970s, the 1960s. Do you think that's as far back as it goes? Watch this space, right? Because it ain't. So even then, In the 1960s, they were experimenting with cloud seeding, hurricane hawking. Oh, what have I done? I went way too far there. Oh, man. He's gave the game away. So not only hurricane hawking, but cumulus clouds, not associated with hurricanes. Right, just sliding that in there. Back in the 70s, late 60s. Weather modification. That old conspiracy theory, remember? Did anyone know about the Storm Fury project? Has anyone ever looked into that? While we're here. Most of you probably know more about it than me. But if we go to this document here, Project Storm Fury, a scientific chronicle, 1962 to 1983. In the top second paragraph, the origins before 1962. In 1946, Lagmuir and Chauffier discovered that introduction of carbon dioxide ice into clouds that contained supercooler water would convert the liquid to ice. Also in 1946, Von Gut learned that smoke containing silver iodine had the same effect. The ice crystals formed by seeding quickly aggregated to form snow. The snowflakes fell from the cloud because they were larger than the suspended supercooled water droplets that had exited before. The experiments claimed that they would either enhance precipitation or dissipate the cloud, depending upon the character of the initial cloud and the amount of seeding agent. Right. The meteorological community had known about supercooled clouds for nearly half a century, but these discoveries allowed them to manipulate the behavior of clouds for the first time. At least that's what they're telling us. Anyone have 1940 down? Or the 1940s or 1946, right? And they knew all about cloud seeding. It's almost like they've known all along. Interesting that, right? It goes way, way, way back. Project Cirrus was the first attempt to modify a hurricane. It was a collaboration of the General Electric Corporation, shock horror. What, the same GE corporation that is now funding geoengineering? The US Army Signal Corps, yeah. Them guys protecting your freedom. The Office of Naval Research, yeah. And the US Air Force, of course. After several preparations and initial skepticism by government scientists, the first attempt to modify a hurricane began on October the 13th, 1947, on a hurricane that was heading west to east and out to sea. Yeah. Project Cirrus. Anyone come across this? I think people might have heard of it before in the past. And yeah, talk about a Masonic logo. I just had to share it. Honestly, I had to put it in. That's the, if you like, coat of arms for the US Army Signal Corps. And yeah, that you can't get any more occult Masonic than that. Honestly, it is It's quite comical. It is so blatantly obvious. Honestly, you can only laugh at it. I mean, you could not make that up, honestly. It's got everything there. But of course, yeah, October the 13th, 1947. That's the date they're given for the first hurricane, well, at least the first manipulated hurricane. What a date to choose, right? Do you think that would be quite by coincidence? Yeah, the raised fist. And what is that? Lightning bolt. I would have to say that's 6 lightning bolts, right? I would have to go with that. I mean, it's quite comical. The big red square, the Star of David in the banner, which pretty much looks like a Masonic apron as well. I mean, it screams a cult. And that's only one of them, one of the entities. And it is the US Army Signal Corps. I mean, you could not make that up, honestly. You could not make it up. Anyone have October 13th, 1947? Here's some of the crew here. Yay! Modifying the weather! The good guys, right? Sure. I think these guys here, again, a weather modification program, but it's not Project Cirrus. I think that's from a different project, which we will touch on. I should have put it elsewhere. I messed it up. I'm going to have to start again. Right, back to the start. Could you imagine? Why can I not see it? What does it say there? The projects to B-17 and a B-27 of the 53rd Weather I can never say that word. Reconnaissance. Man, I'm not even going to attempt it. Were dispatched from McDale Field, Florida, to intercept the hurricane. Yeah, like superheroes, right? The seeding B-17 flew along the rain bands of the hurricane and dropped nearly 180 pounds of crushed, dried ice into the clouds. The crew reported, quote, pronounced modification of the cloud deck seeded. Over, close quote. It is not known if that was due to the seeding. Say what now? Well, that's a great experiment, that, right? Next, the hurricane changed direction and made landfall near Savannah, Georgia. The public blamed the seeding, and Irvin Longmuir claimed that the reversal had been caused by human intervention. Cirrus was cancelled and lawsuits were threatened. Only the fact that a system in 1906 had taken a similar path, as well as evidence showing that the storm had already begun to turn when seeding began, ended the litigation. This disaster set back the cause of seeding hurricanes for 11 years. Yeah, sure it did. Sure it did. It kept it out the media, probably. Sure it did, right? So it ended up having a bad effect and people were not happy. At first, the seeding was officially denied, and it took years before the government admitted it. According to the September the 12th, 1965 edition of the Fort Lauderdale News on Sun Sentinel in 1947, a hurricane, quote, went wacky, close quote, and quote, 12 years later, it was admitted the storm had in fact been seeded, close quote. Yeah, no shit, Sherlock. So the public were right, and of course later on it came out. But at the time they would have said, "Don't be stupid! What are you, crazy? You think they manipulated the hurricane? Don't be stupid, right?" Sure. Weather modification via cloud seeding has a long history in perennially dry Southern California. Santa Barbara County has had cloud seeding with both ground-based machines and dedicated cloud seeding aeroplanes since the 1980s. In 2016, Los Angeles County rebooted its cloud seeding program with ground-based machines for the first time after 2002. Yeah, this has been going on for a very long time, and we are seeing the real effects of it. It's not climate change, in my view. It's the effects of weather modification, the hacking of natural systems. What about Operation Popeye? I bet people have heard of that one. Surely we've heard of this one, right? I'd imagine some people have. Yeah, it went wacky. I thought that was kind of funny. I was going to call it, like I said, wacky weather, just based on that headline. But it's kind of fitting, right? It is kind of fitting. Now, Operation Popeye, it's not Popeye in like spinach and olive and what's the guy's name? I can't remember the other guy's name. Popeye, Olive, and bugger, is it Pluto? Is that the big guy's name? Why am I thinking Pluto? I'm not going to sleep now. Is it Pluto? Oh, not Pluto. I thought it was Pluto. Oh, man. Do you know this? Not really. I mean, I only know the basics like anyone else. Maybe just looked into it a wee bit more. But the information's all there to see. I did speak to someone today and explained to them that the weather modification has been happening since way before I was born. And they thought, what? And it's like, well, yeah, but people have not looked into it. If they look into it, they'll see. It's all there in black and white, right? But I think Project Popeye, a lot of people know about that one. It's one of the more common ones that gets mentioned. See, I thought his name was Pluto, but Bluto, that doesn't even ring a bell. I don't think it's Wimpy. It must be Bluto because I thought it was Pluto, right? But of course, that's not the Popeye that we're referring to today. We're touching on, yeah, harp's an instrument that gets used for weather modification purposes, and that harp in itself would be another 3-hour stream, so that could be one that we could do. After this one, it's gonna be Bob Lazar, so something a wee bit different. We will get back to geoengineering because there's more to get into, believe it or not. I've had to I had to shorten this one down. I had to take stuff out, and we're going to cover more. More in the future, more in the way of regulation and things that the British government and the American government are doing for our benefit, right? Sure. Let's go with that. So Popeye, I think someone did mention Vietnam. Popeye was a military cloud seeding project carried out by the US Air Force during the Vietnam War in 1967 and 72. The highly classified program attempted to extend the monsoon season over specific areas of the Ho Chi Minh Trail in order to disrupt North Vietnamese military supplies by softening road surfaces and causing landslides. Yeah. So they don't need HARP to cause a landslide. They can just make it rain and rain more and more. So you know how we mentioned before, they talked about how they wanted to decrease a hurricane, not increase it, right? They wouldn't attempt to do that. But here they are here in Vietnam, increasing, extending the rain, extending the extremeness of a monsoon. Of course, they've done all their experiments behind the scenes. The stuff that we get to see is very little, a small percentage of it. By the time we see it, it's pretty much useless. It's all already happening. But I think a lot of people might have heard about Operation Popeye. The chemical warfare modification program was conducted from Thailand over Cambodia, Laos, and Vietnam, and allegedly sponsored by Secretary of State Henry Kissinger and the CIA without the authorization of then Secretary of Defense Melvin Laird. Yeah, because he was in control, right? Who had categorically denied to Congress that a program for modification of the weather for use as a tactical weapon even existed. Modifying the weather doesn't exist. While it's happening. Yeah. Funny that, right? And what an absolute coincidence that Henry Kissinger, would get a mention. Of course, the Rockefeller right-hand man. He would be there lurking in the background. And there's a picture of Henry and David back in the day, right? Henry was the gopher for the Rockefellers, without a doubt. Anything you see Henry connected to, you're going to want to stay well clear of it. Big time. And he's connected to a lot. Put it that way. I never looked at that photo. I think on the tie, I think on David Rockefeller's tie, there is a Knights Templar cross. We might get back to that in the future. I think that might be about it, to be honest. Like I said, I've took a few bits out. We're going to get back to geoengineering in the future. Possibly in the next 2 weeks, we're going to get back to it. But on Monday, I think. Don't hold me to it if it's not. My hands are quite tied at the moment, to be honest. But I try my best, right? On Monday, we're going to get into Bob Lazar, right? Or should I say Bob Bizarre? That's his name. That's what I'm calling him. Bob Bizarre. Have I got any more videos I want to show you? I thought I had a NASA one that I was meant to show you before, but I forgot. Whoops. Knowing me, right? Let me see. We'll leave it. We'll leave it tonight. We'll leave it tonight, right? NASA are another entity. We're gonna. I mean, we cover them quite a lot. Here we are covering geoengineering, stratospheric injection, aerosol injection, and who's leading the way? It's NASA. Shock horror, right? Who'd have thought it? And like I always say now, if you thought that NASA were a space agency, I'm afraid they're not, right? Bob Lyar. I wonder what Bob's pimp name is, because he was a pimp. Did we know that? Do we know about Bob Lazar in the brothel? Do we know about Bob and the fact that he was basically the first form of Epstein? And he had a wee honey trap going where he would record politicians or people of officials, maybe. Do we know about that? If you didn't, we're going to get into that on Monday. I mean, there's so much to get into with Bob Bizarre. Honestly, I spoke to RV about him as well, and he's mentioned or covered Bob a few times in the past, and he can't buy again anything that he says. I think the one I do on Bob could be about 2 hours long, because there's so much to get into. In fact, while we're here, right, honestly, this is, I'll quickly show you it because it's funny. Let me see if I can find it. Did anyone watch the interview that Bob done with Joe Rogan? Oh man, honest to God, it is so comical. I think you don't even get half an hour in, and the guy pretty much breaks down. I honestly thought he was going to cry. Honest to God, I thought he's going to break down and cry now. That's it, he's gone. It's too many questions. Where was it at again? I think maybe not even half an hour in. How exactly what was going on in the reactor? Let me see. Can I find it quickly? You might have to bear with me while I try and find it. His wee buddy had to step in and help him out, and of course he had an excuse as well. I think it might be about here. We'll watch a wee bit of it, right? Honestly, I can do nothing but laugh at it. So I'll share my screen if I can, right? And you can see a wee bit of it, and we're going to get more into it. Yeah, that's one way to describe Joe Rogan, right? Someone asked me, is Joe Rogan, is he all right? Is Joe Rogan all right? Are you joking, right? That's got to be a joke question, that. A guy that can pretty much say whatever he likes and get away with it. A guy that gets a, £80 million contract? Do you think they just hand them out to anyone? Oh no. They hand £80 million contracts to people who are part of the occult, put it that way. High up in the order you'd have to be to land yourself an £80 million contract. So, in answer to the question, is Joe Rogan all right? No, he's not all right. Now, when it comes to looking for the truth, it can be hard. People who are there to deceive you, they can say a lot of stuff that is true. It does make sense, but they have an alternative agenda. So, 99% of what they say may well be true on the money stuff, but there's that 1% that they're putting in. That's their real reason. Just that small part they've to add to the deception. The rest of what they can say, it doesn't matter. As long as they put across that one part of deception, the rest, it does not matter. They can say whatever they want. That's why a lot of the time people get roped in, because it's like, well, he's right about this, he's right about that, he's right about this, but yeah, but is he right about everything that he says? And when it comes to Joe, it's quite obvious. I mean, I think Joe Rogan, I think it's pretty clear that Joe Rogan is controlled opposition without even looking into the guy extensively. So let me quickly screen share a sec, if I can manage it, right? We'll go maybe another 10 minutes, potentially. Can I work this? When was I think I've been away a week, and I forgot how to work StreamYard. Not even a week, I don't think. So, but what I'll do is I'll mute me, and then we'll play a bit of the video, right? Okay.
Writing it.
Yeah.
But they won't be able to understand what the hell's going on. They won't be able to make the plastic fender, much less anything else. And I think that's exactly the state we were at. We played around with the parts long enough before I got there where they could make the reactor operate, take the fuel out and know that it makes it work. How exactly what was going on in the reactor remained a mystery at the time. I think we made some progress on what was going on inside, but I don't think anybody really knew anything. They could just watch what was going on and make note of it.
How long were you there?
I'd say about 6 months or so.
And what progress was made while you were there?
Well, we came up with a bunch of reasonably good ideas about how the reactor worked. And one of them was the square base of it was essentially like a cyclotron, which is a small particle accelerator, a circular one. Particle accelerators, linear particle accelerators are just a, long tube essentially, and they accelerate particles with high voltage and, radio frequencies till they reach high speeds. But a cyclotron does that in a small circular area. And there's this very heavy element fuel, element 115, something that wasn't on our periodic charts at the time.
But it is now.
It is now, yeah.
When did it become on the periodic table now, the way the charts now?
I don't remember. Do you remember when they...
2004, Darmstadt, Germany, I think is where they first fabricated 4 atoms. They lasted 220 milliseconds with the atoms. It's nothing, right? And then it later was discovered a couple more times they could fabricate it. Then they gave it a place then on the periodic chart after that, called it moscovium.
So they told you about this stuff in 1982?
Yeah, well,
no, we kind of 1982.
What year was this?
It was 88 and 89 when I was there.
Oh, okay.
82 is when
82 was when you were at Los Alamos.
Alamos.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
So 88, 89, they told you about this stuff. So this was not like...
No, they didn't tell me about it. That's one of the things that this group came up with. The God, I keep losing my train of thought with this thing.
So this one area, this element 115 was the fuel.
Yeah, it was the fuel.
The world will forgive you for having a migraine.
It's really hard to think through this. Just give me a minute.
We'll just give you more booze.
I just want to say one. Yeah, definitely. I was going to say one thing. Bob, for the last 30 years, people have just been on the attack on Bob. Getting to know him, the personal effects on his life. It's really hard to understand unless you meet his family and his wife. I mean, this is the last thing he wanted to fucking do, was have to talk.
Yeah, we should explain that, Jeremy, that you and I had this conversation. I watched your documentary. We had this conversation, and I said, I have to talk to him.
Yeah.
The document, there's been detractors. There's been a bunch of people that called bullshit on many of the things that you've said, but over time, many of the things that you talked about, even in the 80s, have proven to be true. Things that people said were not true were proven to be true. Element 115 was one of them. Right?
Right. Element 115, the fuel they had, was stable. In other words, it didn't decay. It wasn't emitting radioactivity. When they synthesized the 2 or 3 atoms of the 115, it did decay, and it was not a stable element. So they're kind of two different things. But this is kind of typical. Elements always have, or pretty much always have, stable isotopes and unstable isotopes.
So, yeah. Bob Bizarre, right? One of the biggest interviews of his life, and he's got a migraine. This migraine is, I can't think straight. I can't remember the story. Not lies. It wasn't lies. I just keep forgetting the story, right? I mean, such a big moment in his life, and he can't remember. And his wee buddy, the wee troll in the corner, had to butt in. If you don't know Bob and his family, you don't know what he's been through. And like someone said in the chat, that's a good point as well. I mean, it wouldn't be the case, right? Bob Bizarre is clearly an agenda's puppet. No doubt about it. Straight up. And I find it quite comical. I mean, Joe Rogan, the absolute buffoon of a guy, and that's coming from me, has got Bob Bizarre, the super scientist, confused, and his pure migraine. He can't think straight. I found that bit really funny.
Area, and there's this.
We're going to get feedback now. I won't play it again, but this is I mean, it goes on for a while. It's quite hard to watch. That's not even half an hour in, and he caved in. Completely caved in. Honestly. And I genuinely thought he was going to break down and cry. I've been lying all along. Never seen plutonium or whatever it is he talked about. I mean, honestly, the whole story is completely and utterly confusing. But there's a lot more to get into. It gets even more confusing. And of course, if you notice his t-shirt, it's is it bromine and is it barium? I can't remember now. Where am I going to see it? I think it's barium. Where is it? Are we going to see the full bloody t-shirt?
And then he took it to wherever.
But do we know what this t-shirt actually is pointing to? Do you know what this symbol gets used for? It's a TV series, right? Do we know what TV series it is? Of course it's a TV series full of actors, which is what Bob Bizarre is, an actor. And Anthony knows what it is. It represents Breaking Bad. Now, who are the creators of Breaking Bad? What else did they create? Anyone know that? I was unsure, but one of my good friends, James Moyer, he pointed it out in regards to Breaking Bad, because I don't watch Breaking Bad. To me, it just pointed out bromine and barium, or barium and bromine, or whatever it was. But That's seemingly the logo for Breaking Bad, the TV series full of actors, right? Now, as far as I'm aware, the same people who wrote Breaking Bad also wrote another quite famous TV series. Anyone know who it is or what it is before we wrap it up for tonight? I'm going to have to look into it myself. I just got told while I was discussing Bob Bizarre, right? But I think it's going to be, like I said, quite a long one. I think maybe 2 hours, 3 hours, potentially 3, right? Because there's so much to cover in his interview. Although I'm going to break it down, we're going to cover his Joe Rogan interview and other interviews that he's done. He's been on the scene since the 1980s, involved in the alien deception, right? Is it Lost? I don't think that's the one that I'm thinking about. Let me see. I think it might have been. I think I would know, right? What was it called again? Breaking Bad. I'm terrible at multitasking. Absolutely hopeless, honestly. I think there is a connection. I'm unsure if it's the exact same writers, but it's Vince Gilligan that is the guy that I'm referring to. There's a certain show that he's connected to. He was a writer on a show, quite big in the 90s, and all connected and very fitting when it comes to the guy Bob Lazar. It's the X-Files. Of course it is, right? Of course it is the X-Files. Is there anyone here who was a fan of the X-Files? My late father, he was a big fan. I could never really get into it, to be honest. But the guy Gillian was a writer on the X-Files. Now he's a writer on Breaking Bad. And how fitting is it that wee Bob Bizarre would be wearing? He may as well have wore an X-Files t-shirt. But of course, that might have gave the game away, right? It might have made him look, I don't know, suspicious. Of course, the truth is always in plain sight. The Breaking Bad is full of actors, and Bob Lazar is an actor, right? And we will get into him a lot more. So that's basically about it for tonight. Thank you very much to Robert for jumping in tonight. Great to see you. It's a duck. Good to see you as well. Back again. Spanish chicken, which I certainly do enjoy. Good to see you back again. DJ, our Scottish brother in the hood. Frank, the information tank. Life's just not the same without Frank as part of the furniture, right? So a pleasure as always to see Frank. And Big Anthony, Big Tony Soprano in the hood, our English brother. A pleasure to see you. Philippic as well. Good to see you, my friend, back again. And of course, Rich. How could we forget Rich in the hood? Been with us from the start. Unbelievably, right? Thank you for putting up with me for the time that we've went. How long have we went? I think approaching 3 hours now. Cinderella time. It's getting there. Philippic, Spanish chicken, it's a duck. Steve Cray, good to see you, the #1 moderator. Manimal, good to see you back again. A pleasure. Anyone else? Frank, Mike, good to see you. I think I seen my friend Amini Mummy in the hood, but I might have missed you. So I apologize, and I apologize for about 10 minutes of no audio. One of these days, right? One of these days we're going to get it right. If I did miss you and you want a shout out, put a comment, right? I'm not going to do a Q&A. Just put a comment if you want a shout. Did anyone here, I think I've mentioned this before, did anyone here in the 90s used to phone up the radio to get a shout out? Or text in the early 2000s, right? Those were the days then. Of course, the 90s were the best decade. It was the most important time, in my view, to distract the masses, right? In the run up to the year 2000, and of course, 2001, when Bin Laden, right? I think we might do a 9/11 special this September. I'm unsure what at the moment, but we're going to do something for it, right? We're going to certainly look back. I might make a few videos for it and then put together a live stream. There's so much to get into with 9/11, but one of the biggest questions for me now is why so obvious? Because it is so obvious. If you can't see it, you've got to be blind, right? It was only about 2 minutes without audio, so that's all right. I thought it was a lot longer, but I might have to edit the video. And just for the sake of people who, if anyone watches it later on, right, they probably won't, but we covered quite a lot. There's certainly a lot of information there. Everything that we cover, you can easily find it on a internet search, right? The good old internet. Where would we be without it? In a better world, in my view. So on Monday, we're going to get into Bob Bizarre, right? I had to think there. It's getting late and I've got to be up early. Happy days, man. Honest. It never ends, right? It never ends. The one thing about pain and suffering is you know that you're living. Yay, I'm alive. Hooray. You've got to keep the faith and keep the hope and keep going. Never live in fear. Not for one split second. Don't do it. Don't buy it. Don't be watching the news, right? In fact, don't even watch the TV. Don't do it. Don't get me wrong if you enjoy. I mean, there's certain wildlife documentaries that I watch that, I mean, I don't knock them because they're usually quite good. Not so much the ones that get made today, because they usually involve the climate crisis. And it's like, nope, switching that right off. So the older ones I tend to watch when it comes to, I don't know, wildflowers, plants, propagation, if you like, seeds. I think there's a good show on Netflix in regards to fungi or mushrooms, if you like. Maybe even the magic ones. But I find all that interesting. So sometimes I can watch that on TV and get a bit of enjoyment from it even. I certainly enjoy being outside. That's my go-to. in times of need, right? So you've got to know within yourself what makes you happy, what makes you tick, what you don't like, stay away from it. Do what you enjoy, right? There's no sense in doing something that's not making you happy, even if it's a job or whatever it may be. You've got to put yourself first. Your own well-being comes before anything whatsoever. Right, so look after yourself. Keep your eyes peeled, right? Get out there, have a bit of fun in whatever you do, wherever you are in this mad world. Do not comply. And that is about it. Bye-bye.
Putting your name next to John, next to Benzino, motherfucker, like the last motherfucker saying alien vein, alien brain. Satanist, yeah. My biggest flops are your greatest hits.
But